Welcome, everyone, to Every Woman Empowered's Chit Chat. And I am your host, Shauna J. Cerniak, the founder of Every Woman Empowered. And today I have my co-host,
Jani Galarno, international artist and resident artist for Every Woman Empowered.
And unfortunately today, Nila Janou is not able to join us, our other co-host, but we do have today our special guest. Please help me welcome Kyle Charles, who is an Indigenous Marvel comic artist. Welcome, Kyle.
Woo!
Oh, very
Hello.
excited to have you. Pow, 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 ping, ping. Welcome. That's our special effects that we have over, with Chit Chat. So, we only bring out the best for you. So welcome, Kyle. Thank you so much for being on this show. I know we have some fabulous questions for you, and I just want to get right started. So, Jani, you want to go ahead and ask those questions you had?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, I just got to say, I am so thrilled for you to be working with Marvel, and especially as an Indigenous artist. I just think that's just so amazing. So I want to know, what was the catalyst that changed your life around? Because you had mentioned that you'd had a bit of a rough beginning.
Yeah, like when I talked to, I think it was like CBC or CTV, one of those outlets, about that, kind of like got mixed up. Like, when I graduated high school, I was in a small town called Didsbury, and my parents kind of just like split. And so I was just kind of like left to do whatever I was going to do. And between then and 25, I just bounced around from, couch surfing to, everything else I had to do to get through and survive. But it was like for that amount of period that I was homeless. And then, I had a life-changing kind of event, and I was like, all right, time to stop wasting my time and get to university. So I went to the U of A and did the first TIP year there. It's the transition year program. And like I wanted to see if I wanted to do something else other than art, maybe just to, I always wanted to do that, but just to see maybe if like something else might, catch my eye. And it didn't. So I dropped that program and went to a different school for digital illustration and sequential art. And it was great, 10-month program. Met my mentor there, and he brought me into the comic book game. And so I started drawing comic books, and I'm like, oh my God, I finally made it. Here we are. And first couple of years, like, not bad, I did some pretty cool books and people liked them. But yeah, the comic book game is not an easy path or an easy road, and you kind of run into problems, and I wasn't making money for the work I was doing. So if you can imagine working a full-time job and not getting paid for it, that kind of leaves you in a rough spot. So yeah, during 2015, I was drawing a book called Roche Limit, Clandestiny, and this is after I've already done a mini series and a one shot and like all this stuff. That I went homeless again, and I was homeless for like a couple weeks only, and then I had a friend of mine who let me stay with them. But yeah, it was still like a trip, sitting on the 105th Street Park in Jasper Ave, and I spend my day there and I draw in the sun, and they have a lot of park benches in there.
Yeah.
I draw there, and then at the nighttime, I'd be there too, and mostly kept to myself, but you get to meet some interesting people. Obviously, it's just a different side of life that most people don't know.
It is.
I'd sleep around Grand McEwen and stuff like that, and I wouldn't say it was any kind of big moment that changed life at that point. Once I accepted some help, I accepted some help, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this comic book work. I got a side job working as a on the line at a burger kitchen, it was called Relish, was a gourmet burger place, and just kind of stabilized for a bit there, and finished up my series, and then things slowly picked up, and I still kind of bounced around, wasn't really going in any certain direction, but it all led to here eventually. It all worked out in the end, and I can't be thankful enough for the experiences, but to also be here now and be.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, right. So, it's me and my girlfriend, our cat, and that's all I wanted in life. So I've got it.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. So you talked about mentorship too. So did you have, was your mentor in comics itself? Because I didn't know whether, you had this mentorship or whether you had to do this road yourself, which kind of sounds like you kind of did, and you kind of had mentorship too.
Yeah. Like breaking the comics, my mentor, his name is Nat Jones. A renowned artist, like when I met him. He was the first like big time comic book artist who I got to sit down and really chop it up with and like learn from, and learn a bit about the game and everything like that. And like, he gave me some really like important advice. Like one being that like, in this career, things like ebb and flow, and you might be riding high one moment for a couple months, making a lot of money, and then the next year might be flat. And like, be smart, hang on to your money, and like, for when the tough times come, you'll be okay. And I obviously like, I wasn't like, I didn't heed that advice totally.
Who does?
That, like, yeah, well, like I just try to make sure like well, as you can see behind me, like I like things. I like I'm a big collector. That's my bug. I collect a lot of stuff, and fortunately, I just worked hard enough to like get to a place where those little ebb and flows like are minuscule. Maybe a couple weeks I'll be like, like can't spend anything. Like I'm trying to scrounge. But like that period is like so small now compared to where it'd be dry for like 6 months. And
right.
I'm better at the industry and like working inside of it, so I'm okay now.
So you have this comic book, this Indigenous comic book that you're illustrating. Tell me, how did that all happen? Did it just all of a sudden, like you said, it says that you got an email? Well, how did that transpire? What took place before all this?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, I think it was 2018, late 2017, early 2018. I just kind of like got really fed up with the way mainstream comics were treating me, and like they treat everybody else, unless you've gotten to a certain point where you're okay. And the company I was working for just didn't respect me, didn't respect my work or my time, and they just kept on failing to pay me on time or putting my life in jeopardy again. So I worked with somebody else who like paid me on time and really helped me out. And to this day we're still good friends and like working on stuff. So that opportunity like came, and I was like, I need a plan. Like I don't want to just kind of like float off here and like, okay, I'm done with the main industry. And I hopped off Twitter and I had like almost 1,000 followers, and like they were mostly all comic book contacts, and like in the business, like that's what usually feeds you is your contacts with people. It's like who and
right.
they're doing, what I mean? Like you really like connect that way, and like that got me work for a couple of years. But I was sick of chasing Marvel. I was sick of chasing other editors, and like that's just so not my nature. I don't schmooze, and I don't like all that kind of stuff. So I quit Twitter. Everyone was like saying you're crazy for quitting Twitter. You know what I mean? Like that's your bread and butter, but like it's toxic. It's gross. I can't stand Twitter. I was just like, I need to get off this thing. I was always checking, and I'm like, why am I always on this thing? Anyway, so I quit that. Made a 5-year plan. I was like, I need to like. I could see where everything was going, and I was like, I want to be a part of the first wave when it comes to Indigenous content and content creators. And so, I made the 5-year plan. I was like, I'm going to get into Indigenous comic books as much as I can, create, as much content as I can that way. And then, hopefully get into some animation at some point. And then, maybe in 5 to 10 years, maybe like, Marvel will come to me and they'll ask me to do something, so that was a plan, And everything kind of like, I met Richard Van Camp, who's a very, famous author and really respected in the industry, and has come to be a very like important person in my life in terms of like, our work life. And, he's somebody I really look up to in terms of like our culture and what he believes in. And just even working with like a few stories of, stuff with him, it's like, it's taught me stuff that I never realized my whole life, So it was really rewarding that way. And we've like, we've got big plans and stuff coming. So anyways, so I met him, and then, got on these 2 anthologies, which is This Place, 150 Years Retold, which is a Native anthology talking about the history of Canada and our culture's role in that. And another anthology called Moonshot Volume 3, which is about Indigenous futurisms. So did a story in the one, and then did 2 stories in Moonshot Volume 3. And the artist who put everything together for Marvel, he selected all the I think all the writers, if not all the writers, all the artists for sure from those 2 books, and just kind of hand selected us and brought them to Marvel and saying like, hey, this is who I want to work with, I guess. I'm assuming that's how it went down. He kind of talked about it, and then a couple months after that, because I sent him work. He was on Twitter, asked for work, so I joined Twitter again for a couple days, sent him work, got off, and nothing ever happened. So I was like, well, okay, never mind. But come August, I got the email and was obviously like, oh my God, this can't be real. You know what I mean? It's just so, I didn't expect that for a long time. For that to happen, I was just like, no. So I checked and I was like, oh, come on, who is this? And, then when I found out, obviously I was just like, oh my God, this is actually happening,
That's amazing.
And the Marvel thing and all this media coverage, it's just gotten even crazier. So there's some, we're launching my comic book company Unregistered Studios, hopefully in the later 2021. And we'll have, we have partners like Renegade Arts Entertainment, who's a comic book company here in Alberta, and Wonder Harbor, who's a comic book store here in Edmonton. And, hopefully we'll be able to build a platform for other Indigenous creators to come tell their stories. And I'll also have some pretty big news in the next couple of months here in terms of animation. And when that gets announced, I think it's gonna be a pretty big deal. So I'm really excited for the future right now.
That's great. I know, like you said, there's been a lot of media. Everybody is embracing and joining the bandwagon in your success. So that's terrific news. I'm so happy for you, Kyle. Typically settlers romanticize Indigenous people in art. Can you share how your work is going to be different than maybe what they've seen previously before?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because, I don't think anybody inside of our culture who has maybe grown up without a lot of tradition ever wants to come across they're going to be some kind of I don't know. I don't want to be a phony or anything like that. I don't know too much about my culture. I know, what my kokum has told me and taught me, but when I was a kid, my mom would talk Cree to my kokum, but then even my mom stopped talking Cree, over time. And so all I'm doing, what I want to bring is I'm Indigenous no matter what, even if I don't have all those roots yet, but this journey is taking me deeper into that. So it's important. But what I want to do is represent the urban side of things because I grew up urban, in Indigenous, and all my friends were Indigenous, and my girlfriend's Indigenous, and life is just for me Indigenous. It's not, I don't identify with anything else. It's just that's just my life. So what I want to do is just kind of give this space where it's no matter where you're coming from or how much you know or what language you're speaking, and I want you to be able to feel safe in telling your story and whatever perspective that might be. It's because my teacher Mimi for Native Arts back in U of A said something really important to me when I was studying that course, and she's like, we're gonna do some art projects and blah blah. I don't want to see any of this stuff like buffaloes and old school Native traditional art. And she's like, I don't expect any of that stuff from you guys. Don't bring that to me if that's not what your what your background is or anything like that. Please bring me anything that you're going to create. Bring it to me, because you're the Native. So what you create is Native art. You know what I mean? You don't have to fit in some kind of mold. You are the person. So what you create is Indigenous art inherently. And that really always stuck right here with me. I'm like, wow, that's absolutely true. Anything I create. So even I try to infuse some of not necessarily stereotypical imagery, but you can't escape some of the stories and stuff like that, and what we would use in nature and all that kind of stuff. but I try to infuse it with this, like, design element that I have in me, so that anything I design or any story I tell, it's like, it's inherently Indigenous because I'm an Indigenous person. So like, that's what I want to bring. And that's like, a contemporary, modern experience for Native storytelling while respecting what's come before as well, but being honest about it. Like, that's, to me, is more important than anything. It's about being honest about it.
Exactly. I have a feeling that as you grow in your Indigenous roots, your work will grow alongside with you, and that's going to be an incredible journey to watch as you progress forward and see how that takes place in your work. So thank you for sharing that, because you're right. Because you're Indigenous and the work that you do, that makes it Indigenous art. So so true in that regard. Yes. Yeah. Jenny?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Oops. I was so like, I want to hear more. Okay. So if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, okay.
Really essential question.
That's a good one. I think I've always wanted to be able to, like, teleport, because, like, I'm a very I've never flown, and, like, to fly somewhere, like, I would have to be, like, heavily medicated with the doctor's note and, like, everything. Like, I would have to have, like, a caretaker, and, like, it's the only way I can fly. I don't like riding in cars for long distances,
Let alone a plane. Yeah, I totally get
yeah,
it.
right. Yeah, like, I just recently went to Grand Prairie for a signing, and it's like a 4.5 hour trip in a car, and, like, I was, like, halfway through it, my anxiety was just, like, going through the window. I was just like, oh my God, like, I just want to be there. I'm not, it's weird, we're talking about journey, but, like, I am so a destination kind of person where, like, I just want to be there. I don't travel. I'm not an on the road kind of person anymore. Like, I did all that stuff in my 20s. Now I'm like, no, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't like riding cars and stuff. So teleporting, be able to go somewhere, be there. If you want to leave, boom, you're gone in a blink. Like, that would be, like, my choice.
So where would be the first place you would teleport then?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a toss-up. Either Tokyo to go to the Ghibli Museum, or somewhere on the countryside of Spain or Italy.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think you need to do a comic about you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the rest of us artists, we always have to do a self-portrait. That's kind of along the same thing, isn't it?
I don't know. I guess, like, I've had, like, a publisher tell me that, and I was just like, I'm not doing that. Like, no.
That's too much.
Like, it's just, I'm so, no.
You're a very humble person. You can definitely tell that. But I think that would be a comic book I definitely would love to read.
Yeah, that would be very cool. I think so.
Well, we'll see how the next couple of years go. If it gets really interesting, then maybe, I don't know. But
there you go.
You know what? You never know, right? Life takes you on this incredible journey, and you are riding that wave right now. And I mean, we're cheering you on all the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Collis, as you're going forward, where do you see the comic industry going next? Do you see much change?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, we're kind of in the throes of it right now, and for every news site that is talking positively about the book we just put out, I come across stuff on YouTube where I'm just like, this is exactly what we're trying to get rid of. This arrogant and ignorant point of view of, like, what's actually happening right now, and a lot of, like, Johnny, fair play doesn't like his slice anymore, so he's throwing a fit over it and doing it on YouTube, and, like, doing it in this hushed voice with this real calm manner, so they don't expose themselves to be the jerks that they are. So with comic books, that's tough. I don't know. Like, I would hope that it gets better in terms of, like, respecting people's, like, yeah, if you want to be able to buy that book, you should be able to go buy it. And then, like, vice versa. Like, because I'm not a censor kind of person. Like, you can read whatever you want, and this person can create whatever they want, but it's full of hate and stuff. Well, guess what? You get labeled as the person that you're, oh, I'm not that. It's like, well, yeah, you are. And you're not in charge of like labeling yourself. It's everybody else around you who does, you know, because we're the collective, you're one perspective, you know, so you don't get to be like, well, I believe in this, but I'm not like that. And it's like, yeah, you are. You know what I mean? So hopefully
have one without the other. It's either this or this.
It's everything has a consequence, right?
Right.
So,
you always expose yourself in one form or another.
Yeah, for sure.
It always comes out.
And
you know,
like
I think the comic book industry will only get better because you're in it and you're trying to lay that foreground. So I like that. I mean, that you're paving the ways for others. If you had, if you were meeting a group of young students, and I've met some incredible youth with just wild talent for comic books and such, what would you tell them as they're trying to journey into the same industry that you're in? Some advice.
Yeah, you know, I've been there a lot. So, because like I used to volunteer with Happy Harbor, which it became Wonder Harbor, the comic store here in Edmonton, and you know, we did like countless numbers of appearances, even before like I was in comic books. But I just go live draw and go critique art and go talk to students all across Alberta and Saskatchewan. And the first thing I ask every single artist is like, do you want to get good at this, or is this just something you're trying to have fun with? You know, and if they say, well, I just want to have fun, I'm like, well, then do exactly what you're doing. Don't ever, you know, like don't feel any pressure. Just have fun doing what you're doing, and you know, tell any story you want and draw whatever you want. You know what I mean? And like just see where it goes, because even those, you know, like even somebody who's like not trying to take it too seriously can get somewhere. Obviously, still, right. I think like my position on that even might have like changed over the years, because it is important for somebody to do it, you know, for fun, but then they become successful. So it's like, and I guess that's the thing, right? Is like, you know, the other side of that is like, well, do you want to get good? And I mean this for illustrators, and they say yes, and I'm like, okay, well, prepare for failure, and prepare for, you know, learning from that, and prepare for like, you know, not getting what you want out of your mind onto the paper all the time. Prepare for a fight, prepare for a struggle, you know, prepare for critique and judgment, prepare for like, you know, not sleeping at night, because this is a bug that you get. And like, you know, I still get it. Like last night, you know, I was like, for the past couple of nights, you know, I did some art that was really affecting, and like now I'm up at night, like kind of like thinking about it. Like I know that, you know, I have to stick to a normal sleep schedule again, because I just finally got there. So I'm like, you know, like, no, sleep through the night. Because then that's the other thing too. Any young artist to tell them, make sure you get sleep. But you know, it becomes such and I'm not like trying to romanticize this end of it either, but it's like it just becomes something that you can't stop thinking about. If you really want to get good, it bothers you. You know, like it bothers you at night. You want to be better, and like when you're not good, like
you dream about it, right?
Yeah, like every single piece of art, like I still do, like I'll, you know, be in the middle of it, and I'll have to like I'll throw it down in like frustration and like flip it over so I don't have to look at it and just be like, oh, it's not there, it's not that, it's not what I want, and just like step away from it and like, you know, go back to it. And then I see not all the flaws in it, but like everything, like, and you still see those, but like for what it could be, what the potential could be.
Yes.
You keep going, you keep making progress, and like, and so like do it for fun or like take it seriously. And the other thing is to like never just give up on something, because like I did this piece of art that's like really, I love it right now. And the other night I was in the middle of it, I'm like, this is garbage. I should just flip it over and restart. And I was like, no, you know, like stick with it. Just goes, man. Like, you know, act like you've been here before. You know what I mean? Like you draw every day. Just breathe, like, you know, all right. So, and then it turned into something that I love. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. So before we leave here, a couple fun questions. You're at Comic-Con. Who is someone that you've surprised to see at Comic-Con or you would love to see at Comic-Con?
Someone I really want to meet, who's like, you know, been a big influence since I was a kid, is Tom McFarlane. You know what I mean? He's you know, just something I've always like, his business acumen, and I just like his boundary pushing. You know, and like some people they don't jive with Tom McFarlane for whatever reason. But like, and like I get it. Like, but like for me, it's like everything that he does for the good of the industry, and like, you know, for being that kind of like beacon to somebody's like, you're not just an artist. You know, if you have ideas and stuff like that, like explore them. You know, like if you have room to explore it, like explore it. Like I would never think about starting a comic book imprint if it wasn't for Image, if it wasn't for all those founders, like creating something like that. You know, like they want to build a platform for independent creators. I want to build a platform for Indigenous creators. So like the two are similar. So like, you know, stuff like that. Like I would love to meet. I've never met him. I've been able to like meet and like, you know, kind of get to know a lot of like really amazing creators. Like Will Potasio, who's, you know, old X-Men artist as well, and like, you know, co-founder of Image, was like one of the sweetest people and like was the nicest guy. And like when I went to go meet him and I showed him a sketch back in like 2011 or something like that, he's like, man, you know, we met before and he remembered me, and he's like, you want to sit down? Like, so we sat down behind the table for an hour, and he just went over my sketchbook, and he's like, man, this is great. Like, he's like, you just got to do X, Y, and Z to get to where you need to go. And if you do those things, by next year, you'll be on this side of the table. And he was right. 1 year later, I was on the other side of the table, and I was like, I listened to what he said, and like I haven't been able to see him ever since, and I just want to tell him that. And be like, man, you were absolutely right. Like I followed your, you know, with your advice, and like it worked out.
That's
Send him an email.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is like Grand Prairie's holding a Comic-Con this July, and he's one of the guests. So like, serious face-to-face time with him, and like just tell him everything that's kind of happened, and like that advice that he gave, I never forgot. Like it was awesome. Can't wait to see him.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. Jenny, you want to ask the last question before we have to leave?
Oh, okay. So this is a really very serious question.
Okay, hit me.
If you were an ice cream, what flavor would you be and why?
Rocky Road.
Ooh. Same as Shauna.
I know. And same as Tantu Cardinal. She was Rocky
Yeah.
Road.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just because like the path has been rocky, but I mean, it's still, life is delicious. So
Absolutely.
It is.
And plus, we're maybe a little nuts. Maybe a little nuts.
yeah.
Well, I know Shauna is, but
Okay. Me, for sure. Yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being on the show today. Wish you all the best in all your endeavors. We're going to definitely keep an eye out. Can't wait to hear the exciting news that you have in the next few months. And keep on being the incredible artist that you are and sharing your story. Thanks a bunch, Kyle. Take care.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.